With the entire country focusing on COVID-19, I've been spending a lot of time in my shop and I wanted to share my latest project with you. This is a large vase that's approximately 23 inches tall, and when completed, it'll be well over 900 segments. How I got to where I'm at so far is I have a computer program called Segment Pro that I modified a plan to fit my needs. And you can see here the summary sheet that it prints out shows each ring, the width the board needs to be, the segment edge length, the angle it needs to be cut, how many segments, and so forth. Now I use the computer program, but you can also use graph paper, and by all means do this by hand fairly easily. What I started with is I had some Brazilian cherry flooring given to me, and it's been in the shop some time. You can see I've cut the edges off the side of the flooring already, but it still has a finish. So what I do is I run this through my planer, both sides, until I'm able to get a usable piece of wood. From the usable piece of wood, once I run it through the planer, I'll cut it into strips that are the correct width for each ring. And you can see before I cut segments, I put a line across the top so I know which the top is. And also when I go to cut these, I cut them on an Encre sled, which I've had at wood turners before. This is going to be 24 segments per ring, so it's 7.5-degree angle. Now I've used other sleds as well. I've used my miter saw. There's many ways to come up with segments. And I chose to do this a number of years ago, and I do like it. Once I cut, and as I'm cutting, I actually number each ring and each segment in the ring, so I know when I put it together where each particular piece belongs, so I keep my grain pattern the same. And once I cut segments, and you can see here when I cut a lot of segments at the same time. In fact, for this project, I had 39 bags of segments cut before I bring them over to the sanding table. And all this is a piece of melamine with some sandpaper adhered to it. But I will take and I will sand each individual piece. And then I'll also take my air hose and blow it off. Once I'm done sanding the pieces, then I'll put them back into the ring and I'll do a dry fit and make sure I like all the fit on each piece. And if there's any tweaking that needs to be done, I'll bring it back over to the sandpaper and do final adjustment or fine adjustment on each one of them. And then once I'm satisfied with the fit, I'll glue it together. What I like to use is Tight Bond translucent wood glue. It's got very good adhesive qualities and it dries clear. I'll take my brush that you see here and I'll actually put glue on each end of the segments before I put them together. So when I fit them together, both sides have glue on it already. Once I finish with that and I have all my rings glued up, I'll take them over and I'll run them through a drum sander like so. So when they come out, the tops and bottoms are very smooth and ready to be glued together. The project you're looking at, actually the rings are all glued together, but the stack is not. I need to glue the bottom piece onto my waist block and faceplate. And then I'll start doing 3-4 inches at a time with the rings and gluing those together, getting ready to put them on the lathe. And when I do that, I'll have my faceplate and waist block on my clamp and I'll start stacking rings and then pressing them so the glue, good, solid, secure fit. And then when I go to turn, you can see the large piece here, but even as I'm starting out smaller, I'll put a piece of plywood between my live center and on my tailstock there and the piece, so I press together. So when I'm turning the outside, I've got good support. And obviously, as big as this is, as it grows, I'll be using a steady rest to accomplish the task. And hopefully here in the next few days, we can continue with our video and show you a little bit more on this project as it progresses. One thing about the Brazilian cherry that I found is I need to turn fast with it because it's kind of chippy. Of course, the size of this, I've got a little bit of concern there, but I think if we watch what we're doing here and try to stay safe, it'll turn out to be a nice project. Okay, today you can see that I've glued up some of the rings onto the waste block and the faceplate, getting ready to put it on the lathe and start turning. Okay, a number of things here. Normally I'd wear my Trend Air Shield Pro, which I really do like, but today, however, I'll wear my face shield just to keep the noise down a little bit. And also I would normally run my dust collector, and I will while I'm sanding, but I won't while I'm turning here today. And you can see I've got the faceplate put on the lathe, and I've got my tailstock run up with my live center, and I do have a piece of plywood supporting the end of the turning here. And as I turn the outside, that does give it a very good support. So we'll get started today and see where we go. Okay, hopefully I can stay out of the way here as we get started so we can see. Right now I'm just knocking off the corners. Okay, what I'll try to do is show you the inside here as I'm turning a little bit. Very gently again. Okay, I wanted to talk about how I line up my segments when I'm gluing rings together. And as you can see, I've drawn lines on 4 different segments where I go from corner to corner, corner to corner, and then I've done the one straight across, and then the 2 on the side as well. And then where the X crosses there, I draw a line through both X's here. So then when I put on the ring, the joint between the segments will line up with each of the lines that I put on there. You can see this one, the other ones would do the same, and that's how you get it to where it's centered and the segments are lined up. Okay, for glue up, you can see where I've taken my Titebond translucent and put a bead around. I've also, while it was on the lathe, I drew a line approximately the inside of the ring that I'm about to put on, just to ensure that things are still squared and everything will line up. And of course, with my lines, the segments are lined up too. It's just a double check. I take my brush, and what I'm doing then is just brushing from the inside out and making sure I have a good coat of glue on there. And once I'm completely around here, I will put the ring on, and then I'll put it on the clamp and let it sit for a few minutes. And actually I'll do probably 6 rings as I'm sitting here, and then I'll let it sit for a while before I come back and turn it. One of the other things I do is I've just glued the ring on the top there. I've laid a piece of plywood across there and put it in my clamp, and I'll put pressure on it for just a minute, pull it right back off, pull the plywood off, and double check things to make sure it hasn't moved at all. And then if it has moved, I'm still able, because I haven't clamped down real hard, to adjust just a little bit. Once I get it adjusted, then I turn it upside down so the piece is against the bottom there and the clamp is pushing against the faceplate. One of the other things I've done is, you can see on the inside of the ring, I've numbered each ring. So as I glue up, obviously I want to double check, make sure I've got the correct ring, but I put numbers all the way around the inside of the ring to keep me in order there. Okay, a couple of things I wanted to quick touch on. One is the clamps I use. I use a quick release clamp. This one in particular is 12¼ inch diameter. I just bought a 10-pack of these off of Amazon. They were just delivered, and I believe it was $18 plus tax delivered to the door. The other thing is the stand that I use here, the screw jack for putting pressure on the rings as I glue them. You can see I took a 3/4 inch piece of particle board with Formica on it. I put a 2x down each side. I have a C-channel piece of metal underneath. I also have, up on top, you can see the C-channel metal. And then the screw jack that I purchased online, which works very good. The piece of wood in the middle, you put that in there to make sure it doesn't cause things to shift as you're pushing down on there. It works pretty good. But that's what I have for the clamp. Okay, what I'm going to do is work on the inside again. I'm going to try to knock off the corners and get things smooth. As you can see, the corners are coming off nicely. I'll keep working on that. Okay, you can see that we've made some headway there. I'm ready to take it back off the lathe and add another 4 or 5 rings to it before we go any further.